Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Missy Truscott on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from Seattle. And believe me, I asked her when I first heard that if it was raining or not, and she said it isn't. So, it's a lucky day for any of the people in the Seattle area. She's a 3-time IFBB pro. She's also a 2019 Fitness Olympia competitor, and she got second place there. She's also an online nutrition and training coach, but most importantly, she's our current guest. Missy, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, Ryan, thanks for having me.
Well, I got to ask, because I asked this to every single guest, what is the weather like in Seattle, even though it's not raining?
It's a little chilly today, but it's sunny, so you got that vitamin D, which I love, and it's a good day today.
I was gonna say it's 5 degrees where I'm at right now in Minnesota, but so is a lot nicer than it was in Canada? Because originally you're from Canada.
Yeah, freaking snow every day. Man, I don't miss Canada.
What part of Canada did you grow up in?
Sorry to my Canadian fans, but yeah, gosh.
What part of Canada did you grow up in?
Ontario.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound. We think we get a lot of snow up here, but yeah, it really pales in comparison. But before we depress everyone with our winter woes, why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired and what motivated you to get in shape and start this lifestyle, and how that led to you deciding to give bodybuilding a try?
Sure. So I guess when I was younger, around 17 years old, YouTube was getting big, right? Like that's when we all started watching YouTube videos for like motivation or whatever. And my older brother was really big into bodybuilding at the time. So, I kind of grew up watching like Jay Cutler videos and Adela Garcia videos. And then I thought like, dang, this is something I can do. Like I could be competing, like doing the whole fitness thing. Like maybe I should try it. So my brother kind of like pushed me along to do it when I was younger. So that's kind of how I got started. I did my first show when I was, I think, 18. Started training when I was 17. Did my first show 18. Yeah, and I just kind of been hooked ever since.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome that you got started so young, because some people, they wait a little bit longer, but yeah, I think it's always nice if you start in this sport a little bit younger, because then you get more time to mature, and you get more time to really develop. But one of the things that I love to ask all the health and fitness guests that I have on, because I always say if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape, whether it comes down to, their diet, their nutrition, how many reps they did, what exercises they do. So many little things add up to the overall package that people end up seeing. What was that experience like for you when you were getting started in the gym? Because I always say if you were to walk up to someone and say, hey, would you train for that body part? It looks amazing. What works best for them 99% of the time isn't going to work as good for you. And it's really a lot about just discovering what works best for you.
Right. So like I said, when I was younger, watching those like Jay Cutler videos, you see a lot of like compound movements, deadlift, squats. And I thought, I'm going to train like Jay. So, I'm like this little petite girl, always leg pressing, always squatting, always doing rack deads. And I feel like that's kind of what gave me the structure I have now. People will say like, oh, like on Instagram, she has good genetics, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, thanks mom and dad for some things, but I've also trained my ass off to get like this. So I feel like when I was younger, doing the compound movements and having like good form has really helped me develop into getting, cap delts, rear delts, being able to grow my biceps, making sure everything is very balanced and symmetrical.
No, yeah, and I always say you're sort of like your own mad scientist, is sort of trying to concoct your own potion and figure out what works best for you. It's so much trial and error, where, let's be honest, so many people can't accept that, especially when they get started in their journeys, just realizing that, hey, it's going to take some time and you're going to make mistakes, but it's just like everything else in life. You just got to keep getting up whenever you fall down. But you brought up genetics, and that's perfectly leading me into my next question, because I love to ask this question. It's probably my favorite one to ask, because especially in this day and age of social media, where everyone's just comparing themselves to others, and that's just, human nature. On Instagram, you look and so many people are like, oh my God, I want her arms, or I want his abs, or I just want their back. People just don't realize that you can only be the best version of yourself.
Totally.
You can't be just like someone else. It's just not possible. But a fun question that I love to ask on top of that is, whenever someone gets started working out, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off, and they always have that one body part that just lags behind it. They have to train to oblivion to get it to catch up to everything else. I mean, I'll give you my examples first. My back, just because I had jobs all throughout college of working in warehouses where, you either got a really nice back or you quit. Those are basically the only two options that presented that were only presented to you. But also, I'm 6'3", so my legs and my lower body are just shot where, I mean, I have to train them into oblivion just to get them to look like any semblance that I work them out. I mean, I always said with calves, I could inject pure muscle into my calves and they wouldn't gain an ounce. I mean, it's just a mystery. I still have friends to this day who, whenever I walk into the gym, they say, "Oh, hey Ryan, you plan on working out legs anytime this year?" And it's like, dude, you saw me train legs yesterday. Come on. So I deal with that all the time. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
Um, I've been pretty blessed to be an athlete, my whole life. I did gymnastics and cheerleading, so I've always had that like athletic look to me. Um, but definitely as I've like progressed in the IFBB, the women come with really, really hard hamstrings. And the tie-ins are, especially at the figure level, which I also compete in figure too, the tie-ins are freaking insane. So that's something I've had to work really hard on to develop. And yeah, I mean, it's been like the last 18 weeks. I have been training with John Meadows, like his training programs, and he's had me on push pull legs twice a week, and then we have an off day on Sunday. So that's not including my cardio, my actual fitness training. So it's been a lot of like grueling workouts, but I mean, I'm like where I'm at right now, 15 days out from the Arnold Classic. I'm ready.
Yeah, she
I feel
definitely
very.
looks ready for anyone out there. Yeah, she definitely does. But yeah, it's I mean, I always just find that answer so fascinating because so many people, so many different body parts really and it just really shows that, there's such a wide variety out there of what you can accomplish. And, it's again, a lot of it genetics plays a part, but like you said, working your butt off, that also plays a huge role in it too. I mean, we have people on here that have been born with absolutely crappy genetics who are just able to, make up for that, with just a ton of hard work. But a training technique that I love to talk about on this podcast because I was somewhat aware of it before I started the podcast, but then through having all these guests recommend it to me, I really started practicing it myself as time under tension. Do you like to use a lot of time under tension in your training?
Um, More towards like mm, maybe like a couple weeks out from a show, I'll start doing that. But I like to train more explosively, whether it's like incline bench or flat dumbbell presses. Like I like to really on the eccentric, like slow and then explode up. And it might not be like a full rep all the way down because shoulders, whatever, come into factor. But even if it's like three quarters down and then explode up. So I'm a little different that way.
No, and that's totally awesome too because we have, it's a wide variety just like everything else in health and fitness, there's so many different ways to get it done and so many people practice so many different ways and like I always make the joke where it's like every day there's another 1,000 ways to get in shape that gets invented somewhere that it's just it's always ever evolving. But yeah, that too, I mean, explosive workouts, we have a ton of people on here that do that as well. But one thing that is not talked about, I don't think, in the general public as much as it should be, is the fact that your nutrition is so much the biggest part of your journey when it comes to a healthy and fit lifestyle. I mean, it makes up 80 to 85% of the results that you're going to see. What would you say was probably some of the biggest nutritional changes that you had to make when you were getting started really taking things seriously in the gym?
Um, so I'll just talk about like this year, for example. I've implemented fish into this diet. Anyone who knows me knows that I like do not like fish at all. But for the last like I would say 12 weeks, I've been eating fish, and I feel like unless you eat fish, you don't know how it like actually changes your body. Like your skin gets very like papery almost, like like I don't know how to explain it. But once I get that cod cooking, I'm like, okay, it smells pretty good. Like I'm ready to eat. But yeah, I definitely think that certain foods will make you look a different type of way.
No, absolutely. And and again, everyone, before we start the podcast, she was wondering where Minnesota was, and I'll just tell her. So we're known as the land of 10,000 lakes. That's like our state logo, where we have like the most lakes of out of any state. So we're huge into fishing and huge into that. So we are our Major League Baseball team, the Minnesota Twins. We're the only stadium in the major leagues that serves fried walleye as something that you can eat.
Oh, cool.
So we're really into that. So yeah, I cook and I clean fish that I have all during the summer. Yeah, that's what I do. So yeah, I actually, when you were talking about like that kind of that papery thing, that happens to me too sometimes when I eat a lot of fish. So yeah, I totally understand that. And that's one thing that a lot of people have been talking about too on the podcast is eating fish and how that does a benefit to that. But for me, I can only eat a certain amount of fish before, it just gets too much, and it really depends on the type of fish. And I had a bad experience where I undercooked the fish a little bit too much, and that's a whole different story in and of itself.
You
But
just gotta pretend it's sushi.
yeah, that too. I mean, yeah, that's a whole another thing. Yeah, sushi too. That's another good meal. But we talked about this right before we started recording as well, and I always say it's probably the biggest myth and stereotype that I love to bust on this podcast, and it's gotten better the last 5 years, but unfortunately, it still exists. There's still so many women that have that fear where if they walk into the gym and they pick up one weight, they're just going to put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. And first of all, I wish I had that type of confidence that I thought that I'd put on 50 pounds of muscle if I put on. But anyway, I mean, it is just so not true. And again, if this does happen to you, if I'm broadcasting and someone has actually had that happen to them, give me your number. I will pay you my entire life savings to work out with you for one time then, because I want to know your secrets. But obviously that's not true. And did you have that fear when you were getting started? And obviously, I mean, it's you over time you've learned that it's not true. But how do you like to deal with that now, knowing that, I mean, you probably still get that all the time, knowing that, I mean, you're a training coach and you do nutrition. How do you deal with that?
Um, yeah, I do get that a lot. Like women will come up to me and be like, "Oh, I can't lift weights like that because I put on too much muscle in my legs." And really, you do? Because I've been lifting for 13 years and I'm still having a hard time. So whatever you're doing, I need to do. No, I'm just kidding. But I think it's kind of like maybe just a way for them to come and talk to me. I don't know. Um, but yeah, I think it's great that, when women have the confidence to go in the gym and train, like we just have every right to be there like men do. So let's all just like get after it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I always like to tell the story when I was in college. I had the basic college workout place where it was the gym down below, and then they had the track upstairs. You go up on the track, that's where all the ellipticals and the treadmills were, and it would be 95% women and like 5% guys doing their cardio before working out. And then you went down to the gym, 99% guys, and there'd be like one or two women that would go down there. But yeah, it's just anything that can really help break that, because so many. And again, the myth has been getting better, but I mean, I always like to. I had a friend too who was like, "Yeah, I'm just afraid that I'm gonna get too bulky," and I was like, "Listen, the amount of weight that you carry in your purse," she had a really heavy purse. Like, I don't know if she had a dead sorority sister in there or something like that, but it was like a 20, 30 pound purse. So I was like, you're lugging that thing around 24/7 and you're not putting on an ounce of muscle from doing that. And then that sort of convinced her. But a question that I like to add on to that, because I think that it affects women so much more positively than it does men in the gym, is the confidence boost that working out gives you. I mean, we have heard hundreds of stories on this podcast of women who have made life-changing decisions because of that confidence boost that they get from working out. I mean, either, maybe they're a little more assertive, or they're just really, it just affects your life in such a great way. And I always say that's the one thing that you can take from the gym and impact every single aspect of your life, is that confidence boost. How have you taken that extra added boost that you get in confidence from working out and use that to impact your life?
hmm well, I would definitely say, like, as I was younger, I'm married now. But back in the day, I had like boyfriends and stuff, but you go through breakups and you always had the gym. The gym was always there, and it was always, an outlet to just kind of go and do your thing. And I just felt like that really helped me get through some tough times, I guess. But I've always like really, really loved training, and it's, no matter what, it's always going to be there.
Well, and let's be honest, wanting a revenge body is one of the best motivators of all time when it comes to working out. So that's the one thing that's helped me out through a lot of my breakups too. Yeah, it's just like, oh, time to really get serious then. So yeah, the gym is such a therapy, and I mean, like I said, it's a healthy addiction. I mean, you can be addicted to a lot of things, but being addicted to the gym, that's one of the best things that you can be addicted to when it comes down to it, because yeah, it's just it's a great release for people. And like, I know some people that like to go to the gym in pairs, or they like to go by themselves. I like to go by myself because that's my therapy too, where it's like I can unload up from the day and just, get in my mindset and just get my workout done. But one thing that I never understood before I started recording this podcast, but now that I've had so many people come on and talk about it, I like to say this is probably the hardest thing that the competitors have to go through, is the posing. I mean, I always say your workouts, can be hard too. Your nutrition can be hard too. But for so many people, posing is the hardest thing. And I like to compare it now to being a perfect driver, where you can be a great driver, you can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser, you can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What has your experience with posing been like?
So I like to keep my posing very simple on stage. With all the like new divisions, wellness, bikini, all that kind of stuff, they're very like sexy type posing, which is totally fine. I respect all the divisions, but for figure and fitness, it's not really about that. You have to showcase your physique, and you have to showcase it in a way that even if you do have flaws, you have to hide it. So an example, if your midsection isn't as tight as it should be, you wouldn't necessarily crunch down on your abs, right? You would try to elongate it. If your hamstrings aren't tight, you would maybe bend over a little bit forward to like really stretch them out in your posing. If you had a shitty back, you wouldn't stay on your back pose for 5 seconds. You would keep it moving because you don't want the judges to look at it. But yeah, I think with all the new divisions, you just kind of have to stay in your own lane for posing. I know a lot of IFBB pros like post their posing routines on Instagram and everything. But you have to remember, as an amateur, you're not necessarily supposed to be showcasing those types of posing. They want to see the mandatories, and if you can nail your mandatories, your front, your sides, your back, you're golden.
Absolutely. And out of your figure poses, what is your favorite? I know you guys only have like your 4 mandatories, but what is your favorite mandatory pose and what is your least favorite mandatory pose?
My favorite mandatory pose is my left side because, well, let's be real. Whatever side you wipe your butt on is the side that you're posing is the turn is the best. So whatever. That's a little tidbit for you guys. So that's my the best side for me.
Hey, we learn
Um,
something new on this podcast every time. That's the first time we've ever heard that. So again, we learn something new every single time, everyone.
it's true
Yep.
though. Think about it. Think about it.
Mhm.
So yeah, that the left side, and then my non-mandatory pose is probably just like the front on superwoman, just like pop shoulders, flex abs hard.
Yep. I always said if I ever competed, just because my back would be my favorite, just because that's the one where you can kind of let your smile down, where you don't have to be smiling constantly. Because we've had guests come on where they talk about, hey, I let my smile down for like 15 seconds during my routine, or even during like the call outs, and I got dock points off for that. And I always say, your jaw might be one of the most sore things after the show, because you just have to maintain that smile. And I mean, yeah, posing is an enigma in and of itself that the general public just doesn't realize, because your body is not meant to be in that flex of a state for as long of a time as you do when you're posing routines, as much as a time as when you're on stage. So it's just a huge thing for that. But what is your experience like in those heels that they make you wear? Because I always say, that's one of the biggest detriments to a lot of the guests that we have on.
Well, I actually have my posing heels down here right now. After I'm done my cardio, I always, do my walk. I do my mandatory poses. It's honestly practice. You have to practice. Like, if you want to feel confident on stage, you got to put the work in before. And, I've been doing this for 13 years competing, and it's just something you have to do. It's one of those things. You could have an amazing body, but if you look like a baby giraffe in heels when you're walking, you're not going to look confident on stage. And what you had said about the back shot not smiling, once you get on the pro stage, there's cameras that come around in front of you. They like go from different angles. So yeah, at the Olympia, you're standing there hitting your back shot, but then there's a camera here throws you up on the Megatron so that everyone sees your face. So you still have to smile. You can't get away from
You
it.
can't you can't win, I guess, everyone. So yeah, that's just, yeah, I mean, I guess I'd have to figure out a new favorite pose of mine, but yeah, just that the whole thing with posing, yeah, it's just that's why I love to ask that question, because the general public just doesn't realize that posing in and of itself. We have guests come on that talk about how, they're even more sore after their posing sessions than they are than their workouts, just because it's just a lot of hard work. But a fun question that I love to ask, because as you can tell, I'm one of the most pale people you'll ever meet in your entire life. I mean, my thick Norwegian skin, I'm either going to get burnt to an absolute crisp, or I'm just going to get farmer's tan, where, let's be honest, that is not a real tan. So I have never been tan a day in my life, but bodybuilders get to get tan. So I always find that fascinating, and I always like to ask, what is that feeling like when you get that tan on and you see all? I mean, we hear so many stories about how you see muscles that you never even knew that you had. Everything really seems to pop out. What is that feeling like for you when you get that final coat on and you realize, oh my God, like I'm ready to go now?
It's definitely a surreal feeling. You start getting the protan on and the smells, like I said, I've been doing this for 13 years. So everything just kind of, my body knows what to do. Um, but yeah, it's a really good feeling. But I gotta tell you something. As I've gotten older and like more experienced in sport, you work so hard on your physique, you cannot let your tan go to shit. So I mean, 2 months out from a show, I know it's so bad for you, but I'm from Seattle, so I need like the tan. So I do go into tanning bed like once a week just to get a little darker, and then my husband will hand coat me before I actually get a spray because I am super white. So we'll do like 2 coats of Protan. Just he'll like put it on me, whatever. And then the day before the show, I'll get sprayed. And then the morning of the show, my girl will spray me again. So I mean, it's a freaking process, but you have to. It's all worth it because if you're tied, first and second, they're gonna take the girl who has a better looking tan, or where where their muscles are more defined. They're gonna look at the whole package. Like, does she have a good tan? How does her hair look? How is her posing? Like all of that stuff. Everything comes into factor.
Oh, absolutely. And I always say probably the one benefit of having our skin tone is that, if you look really, really great and really, really ripped and jacked before you put that tan on, you know that you're just going to look amazing with that tan on. So that's one indicator, I guess, of like knowing that like you've really worked your butt off, is if you look really good before you get that tan on. But I always say too, bodybuilders go through enough already, but with that tan, I mean, you can't really sit on anything. You can't really stand up against anything. I mean, you just basically have to become like a human statue for the day. I mean, you have to bring your own bed sheets. I mean, it's just like, don't
Yeah.
these people go through enough already? But that's, again, just adding on to like the checklist that I like to have of like what it takes to be a bodybuilder. That's definitely one of the bigger ones. And, that leads me into my favorite question to ask, because I ask this question to all my guests, whether they be my up and coming bands and musicians or my bodybuilders, just the average health and fitness guest. For my bands, I always like to ask, what is that feeling like when you get to walk up on stage and perform live in front of hundreds to thousands of people? That also applies to the bodybuilders. What is that feeling like for you when you get to walk up on that stage and show off all that hard work that you've worked months upon months on?
Um, I mean, it's such a surreal feeling, especially when you do something like the Arnolds, because you have Arnold sitting front row watching you, and sometimes he'll put you on his Instagram, put you on a Snapchat, whatever, and then you get off stage and you see it on his thing like 5 minutes later. So it's a crazy feeling. The kind of energy you get from the crowd, it's very very hard to explain, but I mean it's one of the best feelings ever, that adrenaline rush. And I feel like I take that, I remember those feelings, what it feels like, and I apply it in days like today, like when I'm cooking my food, when I'm posing, when I'm doing my cardios. Like, I need to put 110% in right now so I can go on stage and have the confidence and really take it all in from the crowd. Because if you don't do the work now, you get up there and you might have doubts in your head, like, oh, I look like shit. Oh, I wish I would have done this a little harder, or didn't get off the elliptical 5 minutes early. But, you know, I, I I've kind of done that in my past. Like my first pro show, I totally bombed in 2012. I placed dead last, but you learn from that. You have to, like you said, everything's like a learning experience, and yeah, you just never let that happen again. And you know what it feels like to lose, and you know what it feels like to win.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely, like the number one thing I can always take from baseball is, one of my coaches said it, and I still say it to this day. I mean, you learn so much more from failure than you do from winning. So that's one of the biggest motivators of all time. But do you feel that your background in gymnastics really helped you being able to perform in front of people without, maybe getting like a lot of people? Like sometimes we have guests come on where they're kind of like a deer in headlights the first time they really go on stage. Do you think that background of already performing in front of people really helped you with the nerves?
um honestly, uh, I don't know. I don't think so. Because I was like really young in gymnastics, like 6 to like 14. And then they were big competitions, but I don't really remember ever being like nervous. Um, I can remember being nervous in college, like having to speak in front of people. That was really hard for me. I would have like panic attacks. Like it was really hard to talk in front of people, but it's different like being on stage, especially now because like everything is super calculated. Posing, my routines, like I don't leave anything on the table. I am super organized with it all, like, and I think you have to be that way. You have to have that like schedule and like winning mindset to really achieve it and believe in yourself that you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the mindset is so key. I mean, we've had stories on here where people they just walk up on stage and they're just not feeling it, and trust me, these judges are looking for anything to differentiate you from someone else. And if
Yeah.
you're looking like you don't have that confidence, they'll rip you apart. I mean, so just it again, even if you have to fake it till you make it, that's another thing that you can do in these shows.
Yeah.
But one thing about Missy, if anyone doesn't follow her, which first of all, I'll leave a link to her Instagram page down below, go and give her a follow, is that you like to incorporate, like I said before, a lot of gymnastics moves in your routines that you do for fitness. When it comes down to making your routines, how long of a period does it take for you to create your routine, and how long do you like to practice it before you feel like you got it down pat?
Um, I mean, gosh, I like lose sleep over routines and how much it goes in my brain and I'm visualizing and I'm doing everything. Um, that in and of itself is like a full-time job. I start planning routines like a year out. Like I already have an idea of what I'm going to do for the Olympia. But I like to have my routine completely finished at least a month out, that I'm running it the 2-minute routine on a hard floor. That way I can prepare myself for the stage. If I'm running it like the first minute and then wait a bit and then I'll run the second minute and then I'll piece them together, just to build up my endurance. But yeah, it's a friggin' long process.
And I mean, yeah, she's doing some of these flips and stuff like that. Like I could never. I'm one of the least flexible people that you'll ever meet. That's just having my pitcher's body, where it's just all legs. Like I'm all legs basically. When it comes to just leg wise, I don't have leg muscle. But yeah, it's just it. I saw her videos of that, and I'm like, okay, yeah, she's that is so amazing. But
Thank you.
I love to ask all the people that have won their pro card on the show, what that experience was like. And for anyone out there in the audience that might not be familiar with it, I mean, for a lot of these competitors, winning their pro card is the highlight of their career, because that is the affirmation that, all of the hard work that they put into the gym has finally paid off, and, they can compete in pro shows now. What was that moment like for you when they announced your name and you realized, oh my God, I'm a pro now?
It was a very, very surreal feeling. It was back in 2012 in Canada, Westminster, BC. And I'll remember that day for the rest of my life. My mom was actually in Vancouver with me. Vancouver, British Columbia, yeah, that area. And yeah, it was awesome, but it definitely um, opened the door to moving to America and meeting my husband, all of these amazing opportunities I've had now, meeting new friends in the IFBB, just like everything. So I'm super blessed for it all.
Quick tangent question, because we are past Valentine's Day. So how did you and your husband meet?
We actually met online, but yeah, we've known each other for like 5 years. So
That's that's all. Yeah, I know. I've had so many friends that have met, and they've some of them are even engaged right now to this day from people they met online. So anyone who tries to knock it's like, no, it actually works. I mean, I have dozens of examples that show that online is, yeah, it's total. I've done it myself too, and I can't complain about it either. But going back to bodybuilding, I mean, I hate to ask you this, that you're 16 days out, but what is one food that you're looking what is one food that you're looking most forward to eating after you're done?
okay, this is sick, but it's it's not even like it's not even good. Okay, wait, there's two things. My husband and I have wanted Pizza Hut stuffed crusts, like the little
Yep.
things you pull off with the cheese, for 2 years. We've wanted it for 2 years now, but we just haven't gotten around to eating it because, well, one, he's like either on a diet when I'm not, or I am when he's not. But we're both dieting right now because we're doing like photo shoots in Australia. So after the Australia Arnold, we are going to get Pizza Hut, which I'm pumped about. But then I also would like to have, do you know what cream of rice is?
Yes.
So I want a bowl of that rice and grinds cream of rice brownie with peanut butter, and then I want to throw like some M&Ms or some chocolate in it with a bunch of salt. It's weird, I know, but
My stomach just expanded about an extra 6 inches just thinking about that. Jeez, that's no, that's. I mean, I always said if I ever competed, I would just rent out a Five Guys and I'd just be like, "Here's $1,000. I'm buying you out for the night. You're gonna feed me until I, pass out, throw up, or die. But either way, I'm getting my money's worth." But that leads me into the other myth and stereotype that I love to talk about on this podcast because so many people don't realize that look that you guys present on stage, that is not a sustainable look. I mean, people just don't understand that. And I think it's because of maybe shows like Biggest Loser, where people go on, this show and they lose 150 pounds. And sometimes they're able to keep the weight off. A lot of times they're not. But the ones that do keep it off, a lot of people look at that and they say, oh, that must be like these bodybuilders then too, if they work just as hard to maintain or to get that shredded look for the stage. But they don't realize that, through all of the manipulations that you've done with your diet and through all of the hard work and especially the water manipulation and all the other stuff that goes into that final look, that you're not going to be able to maintain that look. What has that experience been like for you, sort of realizing, hey, I'm not going to be able to look as good as I look on stage for forever. And it's for some people, it's only like a day after that they're only able to maintain it. Has that gotten easier for you as your career's gone on to adjust to that and just realize like, hey, it's healthy for me to gain weight in the off season?
totally. And I gotta say, like, on when you see like people post on Instagram about how unhealthy bodybuilding is and the bigorexia and or big whatever it's called, the body dysmorphia, all that kind of stuff. I think it's kind of like a cop out. I understand people have a hard time like with the rebound afterwards, but I mean, gosh, you're putting so much work into look a certain way. You got to like wean yourself off. Like if you're doing, 2 cardio sessions a day, like you can't just stop cold turkey and expect yourself not to blow up. And you can't be eating Five Guys and eating all this like shit food right after your show. You have to do everything in moderation. And I learned that the hard way. When I was younger, after I would do shows, I would sit and eat everything in sight. And I would literally gain like 30 pounds in like 2 days. And it was sick. Like it was so bad. And you could probably find photos on my Instagram from like back in the day where I'm just like huge. But I don't do that anymore because I don't want to look like that. Like I like how I look and how I feel. So I just, everything is kind of like a learning experience. You have to be like healthy about it and slowly up your calories again. And either if you're cutting back on the cardio, you're bumping up the training. So it's just everything in moderation. And I feel like for me, at least when I put on size, I'm putting on healthy size and size that is going to allow me to bring up lagging body parts. So
Yeah, and I always say it's just like starting your own business where it's like you got to spend money to make money. You got to put on weight if you want to put on muscle. I mean, those two just go hand in hand, and I couldn't say it better than that. But two of the questions that I also love to ask the health and fitness guests that I have on, because for the first one, there were so many positive things that happened to me when I started working out, getting bigger and stronger. But the one negative thing, you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars or bottled water. You're just basically the go-to strength person. I mean, I'm still at home with my parents for the next 2 months before I move out. And every single time they come in with groceries, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and carry in the groceries myself, being the good son that I am. Have you found that that's been sort of a similar experience where, as you've, over the years attained this look that people just assume that you can do favors for them?
um uh I don't know. Maybe. Maybe some parts, some areas of my life, but yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anything right off the bat.
I was gonna say though, because that's why when I have women come on the pod, normally it's the time it's because oh, like I still don't get asked that much, but so it's like half and half with the women that I have on. So I said they have the lucky parts then where they can have the look where not being able to ask to do stuff, because I always said too, like I could have zero muscle at all and being 6'3", I'm gonna get asked to do stuff regardless. Just tall guy come and help this. So it's been a never ending struggle for me. But adding on to that, I mean, let's be honest, you're not the average looking woman. I mean, with the muscle and everything, it's if you were to walk out in public like the way that you're dressed right now, I mean, you are going to get stares. I always like to compare it sort of like being a mini celebrity, where it's just people are just fascinated by it. what has your journey been like with that, sort of coming to terms with that, that, you are going to get looks, and has it gotten easier for you to deal with that as you've gone on?
Yeah, I feel like whenever I go into Costco or like the grocery store, especially now being like 15 days out, you do get like a lot of stares. But if people do ask questions or like, want to, pick my brain about some things, like I'll answer and, super polite about it. I've never really had any rude comments. Um, but I just give them a business card and this
Well,
is
she's
me.
well,
Check
she's
me out.
Canadian, everyone. Of course she's gonna be polite about it. So that's, I mean, that's, you're winning on that one. But yeah, I always said my problem was in college, I'd have all at bars, drunk girls would just come up and feel my arms without even asking. But let's be honest, I was vain back then, so I would pump it up a little bit for him. It was the college years. That's a different time. It's been 2 years removed since then. But the second question out of the two questions, I mean, fit guys have enough problems when it comes to getting clothing options that really work for them. But I mean, fit women, it is just a never ending struggle. And the moment that you said, like just by looking at, like your shoulders and your traps, I was like, okay, that poor thing. Dresses aren't normally your best friend that we hear of all the time if you have really big, broad shoulders. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time if you have a big lower body and a small waist. What have been some ways that you have found that you're able to sort of compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be limited, and the fact that, like you said, you're going to a wedding tomorrow, you're leaving for it? What is that experience like, finding dresses that work for you now that you're in prep too?
Um, well, this is a funny question.
First of all,
Because
I
I
wouldn't have even
actually,
invited you to the wedding because I think you'd be too much of a distraction for everyone, because everyone would just be too busy focused on you in that dress. So I would have said, okay, yeah, she can come to the after party, but she's not going to be a part of the reception.
um, sorry. um, I do have a hard time finding clothes. And I have like an off season kind of attire that obviously I'm not dipping into right now. And then I have like my pre contest, which usually, is the cutoff shirts, leggings. And then I have like some nice pairs of like pants that I'll wear out and like sweaters. But my go to is like Freddy, they're called like Freddy leggings, which are, you can dress them up or dress them down. Um, and yeah, honestly, I just try to wear what's like comfortable. Um, Mostly gym clothes. When my husband's not like in his business clothes, he's in gym clothes too. So it's not like we're like upscaling one another. We're always just kind of like looking the same. So
I always Freddy's was the one thing that I heard from all the guests from the UK that I had on, that I looked into. And yeah, I mean, because I said I had two fashion guys when I was first starting out the podcast. I was having like anyone come on, so I had two fashion guys come on. I told them, I said, hey, like all these health and fitness guests that I have on, make some clothes for them. But they haven't gotten on it yet. But a few questions before we wrap things up. So at what point in your journey did you realize that you wanted to help out others and become a training coach and also do online nutrition?
so it kind of started like a couple years ago. I just had like a handful of clients online, more like just everyday people looking, tips on how to eat healthy and everything. So I would, construct a plan for them that kind of matched their goals. And now, being one of the top fitness competitors and, I'm 30 years old now, I'm looking to do something that's going to give back to the fitness community. There's a lot of like people online, especially like on YouTube right now, that are giving bad advice. And I feel like I need to be one of those like influencers that are going to be more of a positive, healthy kind of, this is like the right way to do things. And yeah, so I've really branched out more into like contest prep for female and male athletes.
Now, so if you want to get another benefit of working out, so I'm 25, and when I first reached out to her, I thought she was like 22 or 21. So that just shows you again the benefits of working out, where I mean, I've had some guests on here that are 50, and I was like, okay, you could pass as like a 30 year. I mean, it's just, if anyone is thinking about adapting a healthy and fit lifestyle, just look at some of my guests that I have on and just say like, oh my, I mean, that is one of the biggest motivators, I think. But yeah, and that's awesome that you got into that. But what would you say is probably the biggest struggle that people go through when they're getting started in their health and fitness journey?
I think it's I think a lot of it is like not being consistent. It's kind of like a shock at the beginning, like eating 4 or 5 meals a day, 6 meals a day, whatever it is, and making sure you're eating every 2 to 3 hours. But if you can dedicate that time to preparing your meals and making sure you're eating on a schedule, you're going to see results. You're going to feel a lot better, and it's going to motivate you. And at the end of the day, only you can motivate yourself to do it and to like go through with it. So I would just encourage everyone to like follow your goals. If you have something set out, just make sure you try to do it every day for yourself, not for anyone else.
Oh, absolutely. If you do it, I'm gonna be honest. I got started trying to do it for someone else. I was one of those people where I really got started trying to get a revenge body, and that only lasts, like I talked about, that only lasts for a little while. After you really get started, then you really have to change it and make it for yourself, which is then eventually what happened. But where can people get a hold of you if they're interested in getting some training advice or becoming an online coach? I mean, I'll leave a link to your Instagram page, but is there anywhere else where they could find you?
On YouTube, I've started doing like recipes online, and it's Missy Truscott, and you'll see all my videos on there. And then my Instagram is IFBB Missy Truscott, and you can shoot me a DM, and I'll give you the information to contact me personally for online nutrition and training.
Absolutely. I'll leave a link to all that stuff down below. And the final couple of questions that I love to ask: if we were to talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at in your life? What are some goals that you'd like to have when it comes to bodybuilding, or just when it comes to, your career as a training coach? What are some things that you would like to have achieved if we were to talk a year from today?
A year from today, I would say hopefully my husband and I have another condo we'd be renting out. That's important to us, just kind of like real estate and really growing our own business. I would say hopefully have a first place Arnold or Olympia. I'm really shooting for that. And just be healthy and happy in my life. And more wiener dogs. Sorry.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, trust me, I'm one of the biggest dog lovers of all time. So yeah, we have a little Cavachon who's I make sure that I take her on a long walk before every single podcast so that she's basically passed out in the living room so she won't bark at anything. But yeah, I'm one of the biggest dog guys that you will ever meet. But so you got second place at the 2019 Olympia last year. What did they say was the reasoning why you didn't get? What was the one thing that they said that you need to work on the most?
Um, I I think it would have been well, I was going against Whitney Jones, who is
Well, that's gonna be a hard thing to do. Yeah.
Miss Olympia, I think 2 years in a row. But yeah, I mean, she's phenomenal. Her back is amazing. Her hamstrings are great, and yeah, I'm just hoping that I have built up mine, and the judges will notice. So we'll see what happens.
Unfortunately, sometimes you just run into those like genetic freak people who you're just like it's really hard. It's really hard to get better than. And I remember I forgot what her name was, but she used to win it. She won it like 4 years in a row before she retired. The
Oksana.
Yeah, Oksana. Yeah, exactly. Like you run into that where it's like, okay, it's just basically like who's gonna win second. Basically, that's what the whole competition basically is. But yeah, so and again, we wish you nothing but the best in that. But if someone were to also walk up to you and say, Missy, we made the decision. You can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding, and everyone would go along with it. What would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
I would like to see an actual scorecard um, with numbers, very calculated kind of results from the judges, not just a subjective like, oh, this person looks good today, or this is why this person. I want to see like, something tangible, like an actual score.
Yeah. Oh, I totally understand that too, because one of the complaints that we hear of all the time is, if you were to compete in shows in back-to-back weeks, one show they might want you super lean down, and then the other show they might want you a little bit more of a fuller look, and it's like, good luck making that transition. But with the scorecard too, yeah, I always say, I was, doing showcases for baseball where you go to colleges and you just like show them what you got. And what they would do is they'd give you a scorecard and then they'd mail it to you the next week in the mail. And then if they could even do something similar to that in bodybuilding, where it's just like, here's what we thought you did really good. Here's what we thought you really need to work on. I mean, it wouldn't seem like it would take that much of a hassle, and it would be really, really beneficial to the competitors. So yeah, if they could come up with anything like that, I really think that would help as well, because a lot of times people just, yeah, with the judging, how just like in any sport, judging can sometimes be a little bit yeah, it can't be totally impartial. It's a lot of things, a lot of people favor different things. So yeah, I agree with you on that 100%. But one of the few final questions that I love to ask is, this is never talked about at all on Instagram, and it really needs to be talked about more often because it is the number one thing when it comes to recovery. One of the most important things of all is sleep. I mean, so many people do not understand the benefit that sleep has, especially when you're getting into a healthy and fit lifestyle. The average person needs sleep so much more than, than they normally get. But when you're really into bodybuilding, I mean, sleep becomes that much more important. What is the recommended amount of sleep that you like to get, and what are some ways that you're able to get that? Because especially now that you're in your prep, I mean, sleep is very, very hard when you're this dieted down and you're this, you're this depleted. Sleep can be very hard. But how do you like to, or at least try to get your recommended amount of sleep?
So my husband and I are in bed at 9 o'clock every night. It doesn't matter if it's like the weekend, especially right now because we're in hardcore prep. But yeah, we're in bed at 9 o'clock. Um, Matt gets up at 5 a.m. to do his cardio. And then I get up a little bit later. Like he'll wake me up when he comes upstairs to get ready for work. And then I'll get up and cook his food for the day. And then he goes off to work. And then I go to the gym and do my cardio. But yeah, sleep is super important, especially like in a contest prep. You need that time to recover. And there's other like stuff that I like to take too. CBD oil just helps with like the calming, and then melatonin at night. But yeah, I just kind of have like my little concoction.
Melatonin is an absolute game changer. I started taking that, and yeah, first time I took it, it's like, 15 minutes later, like, yeah, I'm absolutely dead. But yeah, so I work nights. So I work from 4 p.m. to midnight. So I literally, going to bed that early just sounds so far. I mean, I'm in bed by 3 and then I'm getting up around like 11 a.m. But so yeah, it's just, I always find that fascinating how some of these bodybuilders, they're getting up by the time I'm going to sleep. And that's just shows to the dedication. But lastly, cardio. My number one pet peeve. I hate it more than anything else in my life. I mean, I made the mistake of dating a girl one time who was a marathon runner. So it'd always be, oh, hey, Ryan, you want to go for a run? No. I literally told her, I was like, you need to have a knife in your hand and you need to be charging at me in order to get me to run. Like, that's the only time. But I mean, when I say cardio, I go on bike rides. That's my form of cardio. But what is your relationship like with cardio? Are you a fan of it, or is it something that you tolerate?
Yeah, no, I love cardio. I actually have like hereditary high cholesterol. It runs in my family. So when I do a blood test, it's like freaking skyrocketed. It's scary to see it, but it is what it is. And I monitor it with red yeast rice. It's like a natural supplement. And I try not to eat as much red meat or fatty foods. So with that being said, I do actually love cardio. And even when I'm in my off season, I still do my cardio, whether it's 25 minutes in the morning or 30 minutes, depending on like where I'm at with my plan. I love cardio. I do it more for my heart.
Well, I always say too, it takes a special type of person to love car. And believe me, I'll run on the treadmill, but I won't enjoy it. But yeah, it's just there. And I have gotten runner's high before where I understand why people can enjoy it. But yeah, for me, yeah, that's a struggle for me. And now, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Just maybe do.
Your husband.
Yeah. I definitely give a shout out to my husband. He's super supportive and everything, and super blessed to have him and him be on my team. And definitely give a shout out to my coaches. We're going hard this year, and I'm super pumped.
Oh, and again, you guys, we cannot thank Missy enough for coming on the podcast and sharing her journey. And it's just been so great having you on, and we wish you nothing but the best. I honestly think you're going to do great. I mean, just looking at you right now, can you give us a front double bicep flex before we wrap things up here so we can see what you're coming in with? Look at that. Okay, yeah. So she's gonna win. Yeah, she's gonna. I mean, that's unbelievable. So again, you guys, go and give her a follow. I'll leave a link to all of her stuff down below. And if you're interested in, either training or nutrition advice, just definitely send her a message. She's more than willing to share that. And again, Missy, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey, especially when you're this late in your prep too. A lot of times, I love prep brain stories, but I was like, if she's this late in her prep, I don't know if she's gonna be ready mentally for this. But we got through it and it was great but again, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Well, again, you guys, go and give her a follow. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.